What if I told you that the real inspiration for one of the biggest shows in the world wasn't actually fiction? Today, we're going to unlock the gates to a very real military base that sits at the absolute heart of a legend that involves psychic kids, top secret experiments, and even portals to other dimensions. Think about it. A secret lab buried deep underground, a powerful psychic child, a gateway to another world? These are the ingredients of a modern myth, right? A story that completely blurs the line between a real Cold War military base and the wildest science fiction you can imagine. Yeah, it probably sounds familiar, because long before we ever heard about Hawkins, Indiana, or the Upside Down, there was the Montauk Project, and its story begins in a very real and, well, a very strange place. So, to really get a grip on this legend, we have to go right to where it all supposedly began, a decommissioned military base sitting out on the windswept tip of Long Island, a place that has a really dark and mysterious reputation. It's a state park now, but Camp Hero is just this landscape of crumbling old military buildings and stark signs telling you to keep out. It's an eerie, super isolated place, and visitors who go there often report this feeling of being watched. And looming over the entire base is this absolutely massive SAGE radar tower. Look at it. Officially, it was built as part of an early warning system to track Soviet bombers. But, according to the legend, its real purpose was something way more sinister. It was supposedly a machine for bending reality itself. And bending reality? Oh, that was just the beginning. This is where the story goes from kinda strange to just utterly unbelievable. Let's get into the incredible claims that are at the very heart of the Montauk legend. Okay, so the story claims that from 1971 to 1983, deep inside these secret underground labs, the US government was doing some wild stuff. Tearing holes in space-time, weaponizing psychic abilities, and even making contact with alien life. And we're not just talking about whispers of a conspiracy here. These are world-altering allegations. So you're probably asking, how did they supposedly do all this? Well, the legend centers on this device called the Montauk chair. The whole idea was that a psychic would sit in the chair, and their thoughts, amplified by that giant radar dish we saw, could literally bring objects into existence out of thin air, or even rip open a vortex to another time. Now, this is probably the darkest part of the legend, and it involves these kids known as the Montauk Boys. The story goes that runaway and kidnapped children were subjected to these intense psychological and physical torments, all to unlock and control their psychic abilities for these experiments. But where does a story this wild even come from? It doesn't just appear out of nowhere. The Montauk legend is actually kind of a sequel to an older, and you could argue even more famous, American conspiracy theory. Back in 1943, the U.S. Navy supposedly tried to make a warship completely invisible. The legend says it actually worked, but then the ship was accidentally teleported through space-time. When it came back, sailors were either insane or, horribly, fused right into the metal hull of the ship. And here is the connection. The Montauk Project theorists claim that the research didn't stop with that disaster in '43. No way. Instead, it just went deep underground, and it became way more ambitious and a lot more dangerous. The new goal? To master the one thing they couldn't control before, the human mind. It is an absolutely incredible story. It's amazing. But now we have to ask the most important question. Is any of it actually true? Let's try to separate the facts from the fiction and see what the official record has to say. So, when we strip away all the layers of sci-fi, what was this place really used for? Well, the documented history tells a very different story. So, the official record shows a completely standard military history. It was a coastal defense fort during World War II, and then later an Air Force radar station during the Cold War. But here's the most important detail. The base was officially deactivated and shut down in 1982. That's a full year before the alleged climax of the Montauk experiments in 1983. When you put the two stories side by side like this, the contrast is just stark. The legend talks about monsters and mind control happening in these hidden labs. The record, on the other hand, shows gun emplacements and radar surveillance in a totally documented military facility. So if the official record is so clear, where did this whole elaborate story even come from? Well, you can trace it all back to a single source, a 1992 book called The Montauk Project: Experiments in Time. It was written by a man named Preston Nichols, and his claim that he had actually worked on the project, but his memories had been totally erased by the government and were only just now coming back to him. And look, even within the community of people who investigate strange phenomena, the story's origin is seen as really shaky. Jacques F. Vallée, who is a super respected UFO researcher, he was actually the model for the main character in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He described the account from Preston Nichols as highly questionable. And really, that's the bottom line. Investigators, journalists, scientists, they've all looked. And they have found zero blueprints, no credible witnesses without major inconsistencies in their stories, and absolutely no physical evidence of any underground labs or exotic tech at Camp Here.
Okay, so if there's no proof, why on earth are we still talking about it? Why does this story just refuse to die? And you know what? That might be the most interesting question of all.
The story resonates, I think, because in some ways it feels plausible. We know for a fact that the US government did conduct secret, unethical experiments on people. The CIA's MKUltra program, where they tested mind control on unwitting citizens for 20 years, that is a documented reality.
This is what the journalist Steve Volk meant when he said, the reason that Americans are so interested in conspiracy theories is that conspiracies happen. The Montauk legend really thrives in that shadow of real government secrecy. I mean, when some conspiracies are proven to be true, it makes the unproven ones seem that much more compelling, right?
And now the legend is just cemented in our culture. Most people probably don't know the name Preston Nichols, but millions know the story he told thanks to a show that was literally going to be called Montauk in its early stages. So while all the evidence really points firmly to fiction, the story of the Montauk Project kind of reveals a deeper truth. It really speaks to our fascination with the unknown and our deep-seated mistrust of what might be going on behind closed government doors. In the end, it's like a modern folktale, one that asks all of us to question that boundary between what is real